Well, hello. We are diving right in. I think. Moving some stuff around. And as people trickle in, we'll be starting a little bit of hangout session, 15 minutes or so, before we're reading more from the wonderful fairy tales from Brothers Grimm. We'll start with some enjoyable Minecraft and chill. Hopefully the audio is okay. I don't even have the crackling fire pit tonight. Gosh, that's wild. I don't think I did last night either. But we'll see. Hopefully we'll start seeing some peoples here in a little bit. Getting ready for the story times. I don't even have any food in game. That's great. I think we'll start with getting ready to do some serious business around here while we approach the great crack in the sky. This is not friendly territory. But once I have the right tools, I need food. I don't have food. There's sap. Sap is over in that direction. Let's see. Hello, Quill. Greetings. If you're there. I think you're there. Says you're there. Ooh, crabs. Need crab meat. Let's see if we can get some. Hi, Quill. Welcome on in. It's good to see you. We're hitting crabs. We're smacking them. Yep, I'm a chopping boy. Oh, nope, he's coming at me. Coming at me. Hey, you guys. How we doing? How are you, Quill? Hello, Sarah. Somewhat. In spirit. Hello. Welcome on in. Alive is good. Alive is planish. Very much with plan. Alright, well, I'm gonna do... Oh, hey. No, nope. I'm glad that you are alive, Quill. Means you can be here and enjoy my wonderful company. Ooh, special graphic. Wonderful. That sounds great. I'm excited for tonight's story. But I am going to be doing the unthinkable, and I'm going to leave this tree in its state of disrepair because I cannot afford, currently, to take it all down. I would lose all my hunger bars and all my health, and I would die, and it would be sad. So tell me about this special graphic. I have such pretty mushrooms at my front door. Teaser for your saga. Wonderful! Awesome! Makes me happy. Who else is here? Gotta be some peoples. I can't see anything. I can't see anything. I'm in the dark. Oh dear. No torches. I wonder if... I have an idea. let's do this. We don't have torches, but we do have sticks and swamp grass. So what we'll do, we'll take the swamp grass. We will make the wise decision of planting some of it so that we can get more later. We will make some reed rope, and then we'll make ourselves a net. Oh, I don't know if this is going to work. Anyway. Hello, Froggo. Sorry, I had to take your legs. Take this little bite. Send some additional invites here. Okay. I'm really curious to find out who's all going to be here tonight. Hey, little buddy. Alright, thank you for providing me that little bit of light. I can at least see a little bit. Okay. Pardon me. I didn't make myself a pickaxe. And you're leaving. Don't leave. You can't leave. Quill isn't here, that's for sure. I don't think so. I think that you are here. I think that you're definitely here. And I think that this firefly has decided to abandon me in my time of need. So, thanks a lot, firefly. Okay, so I think I have what I need for. I need 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can count to 4. Isn't that amazing? Congratulate me. I don't know where I am anymore. There I am. Gosh, it's so dark and spooky. Okay. Now we make a sulfur furnace, and we put a sulfur furnace in the sulfur furnace to make double trouble. And we're going to place that right there. And guess what I don't have? Sulfur. Alright, well, we're going to make ourselves a crab stick. I'm going to consume that. Oh my goodness. Wild. Absolutely wild. And then I guess we'll eat a raw frog's leg, because why not? Let's eat that raw frog leg. Thank you for the congratulations, Quill. I appreciate that. I hear a gecko nearby. Well. Let's see. I hear a gecko. Gecko. Alright, buddy, you're coming with me. Gosh, that's so dim. And I need sulfur. Buddy, please bring your light back up here. Don't go away that way. Gosh. Hello, ducks. Welcome on in. Good to have you here. We'll be starting story in about 5 minutes, and we're just kind of hanging out, chatting. In the meantime, I have a wonderful fairy guide in game. Wow. Keeps on flying away. And yes, coffee sounds great. I had just a little bit. What I could really use is a torch, which I don't have. Ooh, ding. Okay. Very good. Thank you for being here. What? Is there any way I could make this? It's as bright as it can get. All right, bright as it can get. Here we go. We are going to be starting story in about 4 minutes. I hope you're excited. I'm excited for what's the name of the book? Chapter. The Fisherman and His Wife. Sounds fishy and wifey. Excited for that. Here, while I dig into the abyss. And I really should actually be probably hunting more crabs to increase my food reserves as opposed to digging for torch sulfur. Gosh, this gradient really, or whatever it is, the vector's not really convincing. It's a little bit messed up. Alright. Let's go find another crab within the next 3 minutes, huh? How's that? Let's find another crab in 3 minutes. It'll be over here. Right into the algae. Oh gosh. Absolutely wild. You know, the worst thing that would happen while I'm hunting for crabs is that they attack me and I take damage. Because boy, wouldn't that be fun. Oh hey, look! An alligator. Wouldn't it be fun to have fun with those? Oh, hey, buddy. Oh, you're looking real sharp today. Let's gather some more swamp reed. Gosh, that's wild. Absolutely wild. 2 minutes? 2 minutes, huh? Well, once we hit the 1 minute mark, I'll find a place that is nice and scenic, and then we'll just kind of hang out there. I should probably set up a waypoint on my map so I don't get lost. And eat some sap. Sap is delicious. Okay, waypoint. We'll call it home. And then we're going to go ahead and hit creative. Going to go look for a nice scenic something. Nothing really jumps out at me right now. So how about this cute little non-enclosure? That looks like a fun place for story time, right? We'll use that as our background for our adventures with the Fisherman and his wife. Chapter 11. So again, for all of you who are here, welcome. Hope you enjoy some wild stories. Let me actually see if I can move the game without messing up my background. Messed it up. And I'll move this chat over here. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Alright, so we have that as a background. I just need to go to transform, fit to screen. There, better. And we'll just dive right in. Story time. Chapter 11, The Fisherman and His Wife. Once upon a time, there were a fisherman and his wife, who lived together in a shack that was so filthy it might as well have been a piss pot. Every day the fisherman went out to fish, and he fished, and he fished. One day he sat there looking down into the clear water, and he sat, and he sat, and his line went all the way down to the bottom of the sea. And when he pulled it out, there was a great big flounder on the hook. The flounder said, "Now look, fisherman, what about letting me live, eh? I'm no ordinary flounder. I'm an enchanted prince. What good would it do you to kill me? I wouldn't taste nice at all. Put me back in the water, there's a good fellow." "Fair enough," said the fisherman. "Say no more. The word of a talking fish is good enough for me." And he put the flounder back in the water, and down it swam to the bottom, leaving a long trail of blood behind it. Then the fisherman went back to his wife in their filthy shack. "Didn't you catch anything today?" she said. "Oh, yes," he said. I caught a flounder, a great big un. But he told me he was an enchanted prince, so I let him go." "Typical," said the wife. "Why didn't you ask him for something?" "I don't know," said the fisherman. "What should I have asked for?" "Those enchanted princes can do anything," said the wife. "And look at this shack. It stinks. The rain comes in. The shelves keep falling off the walls. It's a terrible place to live. Go back and call that flounder up, and tell him we want a nice cottage, all clean and neat. Go on." The fisherman didn't really feel like doing that, but on the other hand, he knew what would happen if he didn't do what his wife wanted. So back he went to the seashore. When he got there, the water wasn't clear anymore, but dark green and murky yellow. He stood on the shore and said, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, listen up and come to me. My wife, the lovely Ilsebil, has sent me here to do her will." The flounder came up and said, "Well, what does she want?" "Oh, there you are. Well, it's not my idea, you understand, but what she says is I should have asked you to grant a wish, and she told me what to wish for. She says she's tired of living in a shack like a piss pot, and she wants to live in a cottage." "Go home," said the flounder. "She's got her wish already." The fisherman went home, and there was his wife standing in front of a neat little cottage. "There," she said. Isn't that better?" There was a little garden in the front, and a pretty little parlor, and a bedroom with a proper feather bed, and a kitchen, and a pantry. All the rooms were furnished beautifully, and the tin bowls and the copper saucepans were polished so bright they sparkled. Outside at the back there was a little yard and a pond with chickens and ducks, and a garden with vegetables and fruit trees. "Well, what did I tell you?" said the wife. "Oh, yes," said the fisherman. "This is very nice. We can live here all right." "We'll see," said his supper. Then they had supper. Did I say "we'll see," said his supper? Did I actually say that? Well, if I did. "We'll see," said his wife. Then they had supper and went to bed. I might not have said it. Everything was fine for a week or two. Then the wife said, "Listen to me. This cottage is too small. I can barely turn around in the kitchen, and as for the garden, half a dozen steps and you've reached the other side. It's not good enough. That flounder could have given us a bigger place if he'd wanted to. It's all the same to him. I want to live in a palace all made of marble. Go back and ask him for a palace." "Oh, wife," said the man, "this is good enough for us. We don't want a palace. What would we do in a palace?" "Plenty of things," said his wife. "You're a defeatist. That's what you are. Go on. Go and ask for a palace." "Oh, dear, I don't know. He's just given us the cottage. I don't want to bother him again. He might get angry with me." "Don't be so feeble. He can do it. He won't mind a bit. Go on." Let me know if the microphone is too loud. I did turn it up a little bit. The fisherman felt bad about this. He didn't want to go at all. "It's not right," he said to himself. But he went anyway. When he got to the shore, the water had changed color again. Now it was dark blue and purple and gray. He stood at the water's edge and said, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, listen up and come to me. My wife, the gracious Ilsebil, has sent me here to do her will." "What does she want this time?" said the flounder. "Well, you see, she says the cottage is a bit small. She'd like to live in a palace. Go home, she's already standing in front of the door." The fisherman set off home, and when he arrived there was no cottage any more, but a great palace all made of marble. His wife was standing at the top of the steps, about to open the door. "Come on," she said, "don't drag your feet, come and have a look." He went in with her. The first room was a great hall with a black and white stone floor. There were large doors in every wall, and beside each door was a servant who bowed and flung it open. They could see rooms in every direction, and all the walls were painted white and covered with beautiful tapestries. The chairs and tables in every room were made of pure gold, and a crystal chandelier hung from every ceiling, with 1,000 diamonds twinkling in each one. The carpets were so deep the fisherman and his wife found their feet sinking to the ankles, and in the dining room was spread a feast so enormous that the tables had to be reinforced with oak struts to stop them collapsing. Outside the palace there was a large courtyard covered in pure white gravel, each stone individually polished, and there stood a row of scarlet carriages of every size, with white horses to pull each one, and as the fisherman and his wife came out, all the horses bowed their heads and dropped a curtsy. Beyond the courtyard was a garden of indescribable loveliness, with flowers whose scent perfumed the air for miles around, and fruit trees laden with apples and pears and oranges and lemons, and beyond the garden was a park 1/2 a mile long at least, with elk and deer and hares and every kind of decorative wild beast. "Isn't this nice?" said the wife. "Oh yes," said the fisherman, "this is plenty good enough for me. We can live here and want for nothing." "We'll see," said the wife. "Let's sleep on it and see how we feel in the morning." Next morning the wife woke up first. The sun was just rising, and as she sat up in bed she could see the garden and the parkland, and the mountains beyond. Her husband was snoring happily beside her, but she poked him in the ribs and said, "Husband, get up, come on, I want you to look out of the window." He yawned and stretched and dragged himself to the window. "What is it?" he said. "Well, we have the garden, that's all very well, and we have the parkland, that's very fine and large, but look beyond. Mountains. I want to be king, so we can have the mountains as well." "Oh, wife," said the fisherman, "I don't want to be king. Why would we want to be king? We haven't seen all the rooms of this palace yet." "That's your trouble," she told him. "No ambition. Even if you don't want to be king, I want to be king." "Oh, wife, I can't ask him that. He's been so generous already. I can't tell him you want to be king." "Yes, you can. Be off with you." "Oh," sighed the fisherman. Off he went, heavy-hearted. The fish won't like it, he thought, but he went anyway. When he got to the shore, the water was dark gray, and waves were heaving themselves up from the depths with a horrible smell. The fisherman said, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, listen up and come to me. My wife, the gentle Ilsebil, has sent me here to do her will." "Well," said the flounder, "I'm sorry, but she wants to be king." "Go home, she's king already." So back he went. When he arrived at the palace, it had become twice as large as before, and a tall tower stood up over the entrance, with a scarlet flag flying from the top. Sentries stood guarding the doors, and when the fisherman cautiously walked up to it, they saluted him with such a crash of rifles he nearly jumped out of his shoes. Drummers beat their drums, and trumpeters blew a fanfare, and the great doors flew open. He tiptoed inside and found everything had been gilded and was twice as big as before. Every cushion was covered in crimson velvet with gold embroidery. Golden tassels hung on everything that had a handle. Every wall was hung with gold-framed portraits of the fisherman and his wife, dressed as Roman emperors or kings and queens or gods and goddesses, and all the clocks chimed in welcome as he passed. Then a huge pair of doors flew open, and there was the whole court waiting to receive him. A major domo bellowed, "His Majesty, the Fisherman!" He went in, and hundreds of lords and ladies bowed low and parted to let him walk up to the throne. And sitting on the throne there was his wife wearing a robe of silk all covered in pearls and sapphires and emeralds. She had a golden crown on her head, and she was holding a scepter made of gold and studded with rubies, each at least the size of the fisherman's big toe. On either side of the throne stood a little line of ladies in waiting, each one a head shorter than the next, who all curtsied as he approached. "Well, wife," said the fisherman, "are you king now?" "Yes, I'm king now," she said. "I'm glad to hear it," he said. "That's very nice. Now we don't have to do any more wishing." She said, tapping her fingers on the arm of the throne. "I'm not sure about that. I've been king so long I'm getting bored. Go back to the flounder and tell him that I want to be emperor." "Oh, wife, think about it," said the fisherman. "He can't make you emperor. There's already an emperor, and there can only be one at a time." "Don't you dare speak to me like that! I'm the king, don't you forget! You do as you're told, and now go talk to the flounder. If he can make me king, he can make me emperor. It's all the same to him. Go on, go!" So off he went. But he was very uneasy. Hey, little firefly. How's it going? Why are you... I've got a little friend. I think I'm going to turn away. Oh, dear. So off he went, but he was very uneasy. This isn't going to end well, he thought. The flounder will get fed up with all this wishing. When he arrived at the seashore, the water was black and dense and boiling up from the depths. A strong wind whipped waves into foam. The fisherman stood there and said, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, listen up and come to me. My wife, the dainty Ilsebill, has sent me here to do her will." "Well, tell me," said the flounder. "She wants to be emperor." "Go home, she's already emperor." So he went home again, and this time he found that the palace was even higher than before, with turrets at every corner, a row of cannons in front of it, and an entire regiment of soldiers marching up and down in scarlet uniforms. As soon as they saw him, they stood to attention and saluted, and the cannons fired a volley that made his ears ache. The gate flew open, and in he went, to discover that the entire inside of the building had been gilded, and that alabaster statues of himself and his wife in heroic postures stood along the walls. Everywhere he went, dukes or princes hastened to hold open the doors and bow low. In the throne room he found his wife sitting on a throne made of one piece of solid gold 2 miles high, and he could only see her because she was wearing a crown that was 3 yards high and 2 yards across. That was solid gold as well, set with carbuncles and emeralds. In one hand she held a scepter, and in the other the imperial orb. 2 rows of soldiers formed her personal guard, each one smaller than the next, ranging from giants as tall as the throne to little men no bigger than my finger, and all bristling with weapons. Princes, dukes, counts, and earls and barons all waited in attendance. The fisherman went to the foot of the throne and called up, "Wife, are you emperor now? What does it look like?" "Very impressive. I expect you'll stop wishing at last." "That's you all over. Poverty of aspiration. This isn't good enough, let me tell you." "Oh, wife, not again." "Go back to the flounder. Tell him I want to be pope." "But you can't be pope. There's only one pope in the whole of Christendom." "I'm the emperor," she shrieked, "and I'm telling you, go back to the flounder and order him to make me pope." "No, no, that's too much. Come on, I can't do that." "Nonsense! I order you to go to the flounder. Now go!" Gosh, this is sounding more and more like Vicini. "The cliffs of insanity!" The fisherman was frightened now. He felt sick, and his knees were trembling, and the wind was blowing wildly and tearing leaves from the trees. Darkness was falling. When he got to the shore, the waves were roaring and crashing on the rocks, with explosions like cannon fire. Out at sea, he could see ships firing distress rockets as they tossed and weltered in the waves. There was one little bit of blue left in the sky, but it was surrounded by blood-red clouds and flashes of lightning. In despair, the fisherman cried, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, listen up and come to me. My wife, the tender Ilsebil, has sent me here to do her will." "Well, what does she want?" "She wants to be Pope." "Go home, she's Pope already." When he got home, he found an immense church where the castle used to be. It was surrounded by palaces of every size and shape, but the church spire was higher than any of them. A vast crowd of people surged around, tried to get in through the doors, but the crowd inside was even thicker, so the fisherman had to push and shove and struggle to get through. The church was illuminated by thousands and thousands of candles, and in every niche stood a box where a priest was busy hearing confessions. In the very center was a vast golden throne on which sat his wife, with 3 crowns on her head, one on top of another, and scarlet slippers on her feet. A row of bishops waited in line to crawl along the floor and kiss her right slipper, and an equally long line of abbots waited to crawl along and kiss the left. On her right hand she had a ring as big as a cockerel, and on her left a ring as big as a goose, and a long line of cardinals waited to kiss the right ring, and a long line of archbishops to kiss the left. I feel like this atmosphere is perfect. Too bad it's lighting up. The fisherman called up, "Wife, are you Pope now?" "What does it look like?" "I've never seen a Pope. I don't know. Are you happy at last?" She sat completely still and said nothing. All the kisses being showered on her hands and feet sounded like a lot of sparrows pecking at the dirt. The fisherman thought she hadn't heard him, so he shouted up again, "Wife, are you happy yet?" "I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it." They both went to bed, and the fisherman slept well because he had had a busy day. But his wife tossed and turned all night. She couldn't decide if she was satisfied or not, and she couldn't think what else to be after Pope, so she had a poor night of it. Finally the sun rose, and where she saw the light she sat up in bed at once. "I've got it," she said. "Husband, wake up, come on, wake up, wake up!" She dug him in the ribs till he groaned and opened his eyes. "What is it? What do you want?" "Go back to the flounder at once. I want to be God." That made him sit up. "What?" "I want to be God. I want to cause the sun and the moon to rise. I can't bear it when I see them rising, and I haven't had anything to do with it. But if I were God, I could make it all happen. I could make them go backwards if I wanted. So go and tell the flounder I want to be God." He rubbed his eyes and looked at her, but she looked so crazy that now he was scared and got out of bed quickly. "Now!" she screamed. "Go!" "Oh, please, wife," begged the poor man, falling to his knees. "Think again, my love, think again. The flounder made you emperor and he made you pope, but he can't make you God. That's really impossible." She flew out of bed at him, her hair sticking out wildly from her head, her eyes rolling. She tore off her nightdress and screamed and stamped, shouting, "I can't bear it to wait so long! You're driving me insane! Go and do as I tell you right now!" The fisherman tugged on his trousers, hopping out of the bedroom, and ran to the seashore. There was such a storm raging that he could hardly stand up against it. Rain lashed his face. Trees were being torn up from the ground. Houses were tumbled in every direction as great boulders came flying through the air, torn off the cliffs. The thunder crashed, and the lightning flared, and the waves on the sea were as high as churches and castles and mountains, with sheets of foam flying from their crests. Flounder, flounder, in the sea! Listen up and come to me! My wife, the modest Ilsebil, has sent me here to do her will. What does she want? Well, you see, she wants to be God. Go home. She's back in the piss pot. And so she was, and there they are to this day. Well, that was fun. I think the atmosphere is really showing off what we got going on here. Jeez. Oh my goodness. Wow. I enjoyed reading that one. That was fun. That was intense. And so now we are, yeah. I gotta agree with you, Quill. That's a really nice background. Unfortunately, I can't change the atmosphere, so we're just going to roll right into Chapter 12 with the brave little Tailor as it continues to rain and thunder. Okay. One sunny morning, a little tailor was sitting cross-legged on his table, as usual, next to the window on the top floor overlooking the street. He was in high spirits, sewing away with all his might, when along the street came an old woman selling jam. "Fine jam for sale! Buy my sweet jam!" The little tailor liked the sound of that, so he called down, "Bring it up here, love! Let's have a look!" The old woman lugged her basket all the way up 3 flights of stairs. When she got there, the tailor made her unpack every single jar and examined each one closely, weighing it in his hand, holding it up to the light, sniffing the jam, and so forth. Finally, he said, "This looks like a good 'un, this jar of strawberry. Weigh me out 3 ounces of that, my good woman, and if it comes to 1/4 of a pound, so much the better." "Don't you want the whole pot?" "Good Lord, no. I can only afford a small amount." She weighed it out, grumbling, and went her way. "Well, God bless this jam, and may it give health and strength to all who eat it," said the tailor, and fetched a loaf of bread and a knife. He cut himself a hearty slice and spread it with jam. You know, I'm not sure this has much relation to the brave little toaster, all but for, save, the title. But we'll see. "That'll taste good," he said, "but I'll finish this jacket before I tuck in." He sprang onto the table again and took up the needle, sewing faster and faster. Meanwhile, the sweet scent of the jam rose in the air and floated round the room and drifted out the window. A squadron of flies who had been feasting on the corpse of a dog in the street outside caught the scent and rose at once and flew up to look for it. They came in through the window and settled on the bread. "Hey, who invited you?" said the little tailor, and flapped his hand to drive them away, but they didn't understand a word, and besides, they were already busy with the jam, and they took no notice. Finally, the tailor lost his temper. "All right, you've asked for it now," he said, and he snatched up a piece of cloth and set about them furiously. When he drew breath and stood back, there were no fewer than 7 of them lying dead with their legs in the air. "Well, what a hero I am," he said. "I'd better let the town know about this right away." He seized his scissors and quickly cut out a sash of crimson silk and sewed on it in big letters of gold, 7 with 1 blow. He put it on and looked in the mirror. "The town," he said. Let's back up. "The town," he thought. "The whole world must know about this." And his heart skipped for joy like a lamb's tail wagging. Before he set off to show the world, he looked around for something to take with him, but he could find only a bowl of cream cheese. He scooped that up and put it in his pocket, and ran downstairs off through the streets. Outside the town gate he found a bird caught in a bush, and he put that in his pocket too. Then off he marched to see the world. Cream cheese and a bird. Let's go. He was light and agile, so he didn't tire easily. He followed the road all the way to the top of a mountain, and there he found a giant sitting on a rock, taking his ease and admiring the view. The little tailor marched up to him and said, "Good morning, friend. Are you out to see the world? That's what I'm up to. How about joining forces and going along together?" The giant looked at the little fellow with deep scorn.
You pipsqueak, you runt, join forces with an insect like you?
"Oh, is that what you think?" said the tailor, and unbuttoned his coat to show his sash. "This'll show you the kind of man I am." The giant carefully spelt it out by letter by letter. SEVENBLOW. And then his eyes went wide. "Respect," he said, but he felt he still ought to test this fellow, so he went on. "You may have killed 7 men with one blow, but that's no great feat. If they were all little mice like you, let's see how strong you are. Can you do this?" And he picked up a stone and squeezed it until it in his hand. And squeezed it until his hand was trembling, and his face was bright red, and the veins were standing out on his head. He squeezed the stone so hard that he even managed to squeeze a few drops of water out of it.
"Let's see you do that if you have the strength,"
he said. "Is that all?" said the little tailor. "Nothing to it. Watch this." And he took the cream cheese out of his pocket and squeezed that. Of course, the cheese was full of whey, and it was soon dripping down all over the tailor's hand and onto the ground.
"That was better than your effort," he said.
The giant... Oh, sorry. "That was better than your effort," he said. The giant scratched his head.
"Well,"
he said,
all right then. Try this."
He picked up another stone and threw it as high as he could. The stone went so high that it almost disappeared. I know where this is going. "Not bad," said the little tailor, "but look, here it comes down again. I can do better than that." He took the bird out of his pocket and threw it up into the air, and as soon as the bird felt its freedom, it flew upwards and vanished. "When I throw something into the air, it never comes down," he said. "What do you think of that, my extra-large friend?"
Said the giant. "Well, you can squeeze and you can throw, but here comes the real test. Let's see what you can carry."
He led the little tailor to the edge of the forest, where a great oak tree had just been cut down. "Help me carry this," the giant said. "With pleasure. You take the trunk and I'll carry the leaves and the twigs, which are heavier anyway, as everyone knows." The giant bent down and held his breath, and then hoisted the trunk onto his shoulder. Seeing that the giant couldn't look behind, the little tailor jumped up and sat himself comfortably among the leaves, whistling "Three Tailors Bold Rode Out One Day," while the giant staggered along the path, carrying the whole weight of the tree on his shoulder. The giant couldn't go very far, because it was a huge tree, and pretty soon he came to a stop.
"Hey, listen, I can't go any further," he called out.
And the tailor jumped down quickly before he could turn around, and took hold of a bunch of leaves and twigs in both arms, as if he'd just been carrying them. "A big fellow like you," he said, "and you can't even manage half a tree? Dear, oh dear, you need some exercise." They walked on a little way until they came to a cherry tree. The giant took hold of the topmost branches and pulled them down low, showing the tailor the ripest fruit. "Just hold on to this for a moment while I take a stone out of my shoe," he said, and the tailor took hold of the branch. When the giant let go, the branch shot back up, and the tailor, not being heavy enough to hold it down, was whisked up into the air. But he was agile, and he was lucky enough to fall on a grassy bank, where he could tumble down without hurting himself. He even managed to turn a neat somersault, and end up on his feet. "Not strong enough to hold it down," said the giant. "Ha!" "Not at all," said the tailor. A man who's killed 7 with one blow can hold any number of trees down. The fact is that those hunters over there were about to shoot into the thicket, and I thought I'd better get out of the way. I bet you can't jump as high as I did. Have a try. Go on. The giant took a run up and tried, but he had a lot of weight to get off the ground, and he crashed into the top of the cherry tree and ended up tangled in the branches. So the little tailor won that contest too.
Well, said the giant, when he had clambered down to the ground again, if you think you're such a hero, come and spend the night in our cave. I live with a couple of other giants, and we're not easily impressed, I can tell you.
The tailor agreed with pleasure, and they set off for the cave. It was dark when they got there, and the 2 other giants were sitting next to a blazing fire. Each of them had a whole roast sheep in his hands, and was gnawing at it vigorously, with horrible grinding, sucking noises. The little tailor looked around. "It's a lot bigger than my workshop," he said. "Where am I going to sleep?" His giant showed him a gigantic bed. The tailor climbed up and lay down, but he couldn't get comfortable, so while the giants were mumbling together by the fire, he climbed down and tucked himself up in a corner of the cave. At midnight, the first giant, thinking that the little tailor was asleep, took a massive club and with one blow smashed the bed in half.
That'll squash the grasshopper,
he thought. Early next morning, the giants woke up and lumbered off into the woods. They'd completely forgotten about the little tailor, but he'd woken up bright and cheerful, and he came skipping after them, whistling and singing, and when they saw him, they were struck with terror.
He's alive! Help! Run for your life!
And off they ran. "Well, so much for giants," said the tailor to himself. "Let's go and look for another adventure." Following his nose, he wandered here and there for several days until he came to a splendid palace. Flags were flying, soldiers were changing guard, and the tailor sat down on a grassy bank to admire it all. Feeling sleepy, he lay down and closed his eyes, and in a moment he was fast asleep. While he slept, several passers-by caught sight of his crimson sash, with the gold letters saying, 7 with one blow. And they started talking. "He must be a great hero. But what's he doing here? This is a time of peace, after all. I'm sure he's a duke or something. Look at the nobility in his face. No, I reckon he's a man of the people, but he's certainly seen combat. You can see his proud military bearing, even in his sleep. 7 with one blow. Imagine! We'd better tell the king. That's a good idea. Let's go right away." A group of them immediately sought an audience with the king, who listened with close attention. If the worst should happen and war were to break out, they said, at all costs they should try and obtain the services of this hero. "You're absolutely right," said the king, and called for the chief of the defense staff. "Go and wait till that gentleman wakes up," the king told him, "and offer him the post of field marshal. We can't afford to let any other kingdom get his services." The chief of the defense staff went and waited by the little tailor until he woke up. "His Majesty would like to offer you the post of field marshal," he said, "with immediate command over the whole army." "That's exactly why I'm here," said the little tailor. "I'm ready and willing to enter the service of the king, and all my valor is at his disposal." A guard of honor was formed, and the little tailor was received with great ceremonial and given his own apartment in the palace. He was also allowed to design his own uniform. However, the soldiers he was going to command were very doubtful about the whole thing. "Suppose he takes a dislike to us? Or suppose he gives us commands we don't like and we try and argue with him? Yes, he can kill 7 of us with one blow. We're just ordinary soldiers. We can't fight against someone like that." They talked about it in the barracks and sent a delegation to the king. "Your Majesty, we ask to be released from your service. We can't stand up to a man who can kill 7 of us with one blow. He's a weapon of mass destruction." "Let me think about it," said the king. He was dismayed by the situation, to lose all his faithful soldiers just because of one man. But if he tried to get rid of the little tailor, who knew what would happen? The tailor might kill him, and all the army. Ugh. And then set himself up on the throne. He thought long and hard about it and finally had an idea. He sent for the little tailor and said, "Field Marshal, I have a task that only you can perform. A great hero like you won't refuse, I'm sure. In one of my forests, there's a pair of giants who are running riot throughout all the countryside, robbing, murdering, plundering, burning houses, and I don't know what else. No one dares go near them for fear of their life. Now if you can get rid of these giants, I'll give you my daughter in marriage, and half the kingdom besides for a dowry. And you can have 100 horsemen to back you up." "That's the sort of offer I've been waiting for," thought the little tailor. "Your Majesty, I accept the task with pleasure," he said. "I know how to deal with giants, but I don't need the horsemen. Anyone who has killed 7 with one blow doesn't need to be afraid of 2. So he set off, and he let the 100 horsemen come too, just for the sake of display. When they came to the edge of the forest, he said to them, "You wait here. I'll deal with the giants, and when it's safe to come in, I'll call you." The little tailor marched boldly into the forest, looking this way and that. He soon found the giants. They were both asleep under an oak tree, snoring so hard that they blew the branches up and down. The tailor didn't waste a moment. He filled his pockets with stones, climbed the tree, and clambered out onto a branch till he was directly above the giants. Then he dropped one stone after another onto the chest of one of the sleepers. The giant didn't feel anything at first, but at last he woke up and clouded his companion.
"What do you think you're doing, throwing stones at me?" "I'm not throwing stones," said the other giant. "You're dreaming."
They fell asleep again, and the tailor started throwing stones at the second giant, who woke up and thumped the first one.
"Oi! Stop doing that! I'm not doing anything. What are you talking about?"
They grumbled a bit, but they were tired after all their plundering and pillaging, and they soon fell asleep again. So the little tailor chose his largest stone and took careful aim, and hit the first giant right on the nose.
He woke with a roar. "That's too much," he shouted. "I'm not putting up with this a moment longer."
And he shoved the other giant so hard against the tree that it shook. The little tailor clung on tight so as not to fall off, and then he watched as the 2 giants set about each other in earnest. They thumped and bashed and kicked and walloped, and finally they were so angry that they both pulled up trees and hit each other with them so hard that they both fell dead at the same moment. The little tailor jumped down. Good thing they didn't pull this tree up, he thought. I'd have had to skip out like a squirrel, but my family have always been light on their feet. He drew his sword and gave each giant a good few slices around the chest, and then he went back to the horsemen waiting outside. "It's all done," he said. "I finished them both off. It was hot work for a minute or so, because they pulled up trees to try and defend themselves, but it didn't do them any good. I can kill 7 with one blow." "You're not hurt?" "No, not a scratch." "Well, my jacket's a bit torn. See that? Go and have a look at the giants' bodies if you don't believe me." The horsemen rode in and found the 2 giants just as he'd said, lying in their own blood with uprooted trees all around them. So the little tailor went back to the king, expecting the reward. But the king had had time to think about it, and he regretted promising his daughter to this man, who might be dangerous after all. "Before I give you my daughter and half my kingdom," he said, "there's another task that calls for a hero. In the woods there's a frightful rhinoceros that's causing all sorts of damage, and I want you to capture it." "Nothing to it, your majesty," said the little tailor. "One rhinoceros is even less trouble than 2 giants." He took an axe and a coil of rope, and marched off to the woods, once again telling the regiment that had come with him to wait behind. It didn't take him long to find the rhinoceros. It came charging towards him with its horn out in front as if it wanted to spear him through, but he just stood quite still until the beast was only a yard or so away. Then he skipped aside. Right behind him was a tree. The rhinoceros ran straight into it, and its horn stuck fast. "Well, my pretty little beast," said the tailor, "you're caught now, aren't you?" He tied the rope around its neck, and then chopped away at the tree with the axe until the horn came free again. The rhinoceros was quite docile by this time, and it let him lead it tamely out of the woods. He took it into the palace and presented it to the king. "Ah," said the king. "Well, there's just one more thing. Before you marry my daughter, I'd like you to capture a wild boar that's digging up a lot of orchards and farms and things. I'll send the huntsman along to help." "Oh, I won't need any huntsmen," said the little tailor, which pleased the huntsmen because they'd come across the boar a good few times and had no wish to do so again. They came with him, however, for the sake of show, and stayed outside the woods playing dice until he was ready to lead them back again. There was a little chapel in the woods. The tailor went there and waited till the boar came near, knowing it would catch his scent and charge. Soon the great beast came smashing its way through the undergrowth, and charged right at him, foaming at the mouth and gnashing its razor-sharp tusks. As soon as he saw it, the tailor ran into the chapel, and of course the boar charged in after him. But the tailor jumped out of the window and ran round to shut the door before the boar could work out where he'd gone. And there it was, caught. The huntsmen gave him a round of applause and blew their horns as they accompanied him back to the palace. The hero went and told the king, who had to keep his promise at last, whether he wanted to or not. So the wedding was arranged with great splendor but little joy, and the tailor became a king. A little while later the young queen heard her husband call out in the night, "Boy, hurry up with that jacket and patch the trousers, or I'll clouch you round the ears with a yardstick." Next morning she went to her father. "Daddy," she said, "I think my husband's nothing but a common tailor," and she told him what she'd heard the tailor call out in his dream. "Do you know, I suspected something of the sort," said the king. "This is what we'll do. Leave your bedroom door unlocked tonight, and my servants will wait outside. As soon as he falls asleep, you tiptoe out and tell them, and they'll come in and tie him up and put him on a ship that'll take him all the way to China." That sounded like a good plan to the young queen. However, the king's little sword-bearer, who greatly admired the tailor, had heard everything, and he ran to tell the tailor the whole plot. "I'll deal with that," said the tailor. "You leave it to me." That night he went to bed at the usual time, and when his wife thought he was asleep, she tiptoed to the door. But the tailor, who was only pretending to be asleep, called out in a loud voice, "Boy, make that jacket and hurry up and patch the trousers, or I'll crack the yardstick around your ears. I've slaughtered 7 with one blow, killed 2 giants, tamed a wild rhinoceros, and captured the wild boar, and I'm supposed to be afraid of a few quivering servants standing outside the bedroom." When the servants heard that, they were so terrified that they turned and ran as if the wild hunt was after them. None of them ever dared to go near him again. So the little tailor was a king, and he stayed a king for the rest of his days. The end. Wow. That was a mouthful of words, wasn't it? And a good set, too. And this one, which we'll have to postpone next, gotta be Cinderella. Pretty exciting. And we've got a nice misty background forest. Oh, how splendid. And my head's getting chopped off. Well, let's see. Thank you, Quill and Ducks, for being here. I do appreciate the company. And who else is here? I see it says 3 viewers. It could be that I am one of my own viewers. It's possible. But, wow. Those were good stories. I really enjoyed reading both of them. I don't know... I think my giant voice needs a little bit of work. Maybe I need to add like a bit like more in the gums and like in the nose so that it sounds like I'm having trouble breathing. But at the same time as though that's like natural. You know, like the giants in Skyrim. But who knows? Got to get your inspiration from somewhere, right? I think I'm gonna end it for now, and we shall see each other another time for more story time. And I do hope that your nights, for those of you who are here, are wonderful and restful when you get around to it. And I'll talk to you all later. Have a wonderful night. Goodbye.